In this video, I'm going to show you what's been updated on this dual battery, dual suspension Yolin e-bike that I sourced from Alibaba. A link to this bike is in the description below. This bike was just recently delivered and manufactured in late 2022, and this one I ordered in early 2022. So you can see there's some subtle upgrades to it. Now, each bike was sourced with different options. The one on the right was sourced with a brown seat and gray frame, and then the one on the left that was recently sourced was sourced with all black options, and it also upgraded Bafang motor, which is kind of nice. Now, compared to the off-brand motor that I sourced from earlier this year, the batteries are slightly different. You can see that. They're just slightly sourced different. They're both 22 amp hours. We have taken them out and did about a 50-mile ride on them, so they both get about the same amount of range. Now, getting into the cockpit is relatively the same, except for the grips are different. It still has a 7-speed transmission. The display is the same. The buttons, headlights, taillights, directionals, you can see are identical between the bike except for the grips. We did add this storage bag. A link to that storage bag is in the description below. But overall, the bikes are strong. The one thing we noticed was with the Bafang motor, it is about 1 mile per hour slower than the off-brand motor, but we have since reached out to the manufacturer and they told us that they're going to send us an upgraded controller. So we'll see what happens when we put that new controller in. But I would say the Bafang motor is definitely torquier off the line than the off-brand motor. With regard to the suspension upgrades, you can see the front fork is newer. It's a Tata XE Storm compared to the original build, which had a Mosey front fork. The rear shock was terrible on this original one. I replaced it with this DMN A06, which definitely helps with the rear suspension, but the new bikes are being shipped with a lot better rear suspension than in the past. The seat is also a little more plush compared to the original design by a little bit. One thing to note, you can see that the rear brake light bracket that was integrated into the frame no longer exists on the newer design. So when you remove that cargo rack, which the cargo rack is kind of a terrible idea because this fender kind of bounces and then rattles on the cargo rack, and then we since moved the tail light up to here. It's kind of a temporary thing with the zip ties, but we're going to try to figure that one out. And one of the things they did not fix also is these rear pegs. They're a terrible design. We since shaved them off on both bikes. The peg sits right here and then your heel strikes the peg. It's a good idea, but it needs to be a lot further back and swing forward. But it's a terrible design because when you're pedaling, your heel strikes that peg and kind of interferes. So we since shaved them off, as you can see. There's a link to that video. One thing that I've learned from the comments is that the dual motor version of this bike, one in the front and the rear, is that the top speed is limited. My guess is it's limited by the controller because it has to send power to the front and rear wheels. It also probably reduces your range. So that's something to keep in mind when you're sourcing this bike. The other thing is the third battery that can go up here in this storage bag compartment. That battery is not interchangeable with the two lower ones. So that's something to consider when you're sourcing this bike. But overall, this is a great bike for the value. I hope that you liked this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.